breaking is about, kind of showing all your cultures, So for me, the Serbian part is definitely the history, definitely the culture. Eastern Europe, usually when people think of Eastern Europe, it is just like, the Soviet bloc, Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, now Kazakhstan also. That's not Eastern Europe, but like close. So from Serbia, I think definitely the grit aspect, definitely the grit is definitely something that I brought from my culture. The intensity, I think also too, that kind of comes with just Eastern Europe, because that's kind of like also it's a place kind of where, a lot of things happen. You never know what's going to happen next. And also curiosity, willingness to not being afraid of anything, always willing to ask questions, always willing to, learn more, have the humility, to look at myself, I can do this better, and I should, maybe work on this more. So that introspection also definitely comes from, the Serbian culture as well, without a doubt. So back in 2010 in my elementary school, and so we had every winter, near the Christmas break, we had this kind of like dance. We had like a school dance, and one of the organizers, she was like the mother of one of like the girls I went to class with. She organized a little cipher, and me having a little ego back then, I was like, oh, this is easy. I can do this, right? I mean, for me, this was just a circle. Later on, I learned it was called the cipher. So I, decided to step in, and, I did like a really basic get down, and then everybody was like, started coming up to me, was like, hey, you're really good at this, you're really good at this. And because I was a new kid, still looking for my identity and not really understanding how I fit in, where I fit in, and who my people are and stuff like this, I was like, oh, maybe this dance thing can like help. So I started to look into like dance. I started to my first dance inspirations were in George Sampson. He's like a breaker, hip hop dancer from Britain. He was combining different elements. And then later on, I was mixing also different elements, a little bit of crump, a little bit of tutting, a little bit of pop, lock, a little bit of breaking. But then as kind of years went on, I decided to only focus on breaking. That's also when I started to discover BC1 as a competition, Outbreak, UK Bboy Champs. With that, I also discovered breakers like Kid David, Casper, Physics, Lilu, Hongten. So my first inspiration in breaking, definitely like my first big name that I used to kind of like, I guess you could say look up to, was Physics and Lilu. And then now nowadays I like to look a lot at Stripes and also Hongten and Menno, and also shout out to Castetta and Yumi from the big. So the way I kind of did some like introspection. I was thinking about it. Back in early 2010s, right? There was this breaking brand called the Bboy Spot, and they had this shirt. And I'm not throwing shade at the Bboy Spot. I'm a huge fan of it, right? But they had this shirt called Bboy or Die, and I got a bootleg copy from eBay, and I would rock the shirt when I was a kid, like all the time. Yeah, Bboy or Die, Bboy or Die. But as you get older, there's some problem. It becomes problematic when you kind of fully commit to that mindset, because with this concept of Bboy or Die, you put breaking on a pedestal, right? Breaking becomes everything. And now when breaking is everything, you expect breaking to give you everything, right? So whatever, we have different needs and necessities and whatever, right? So when you apply this pressure for breaking to give you everything, and then eventually it fails, now you are in a position where breaking is making you question your identity. And I don't think breaking was ever meant to make you question your identity. It was supposed to help you find it, right? It was supposed to be, because it doesn't matter where you're from or what religion you are, gender, doesn't matter, right? Race, all of those, it doesn't matter. Right? Breaking came into all of our lives when we were either trying to heal or we were trying to just find a place of expression. So in a sense, what I'm trying to say is that, breaking can help you heal from things you did not even know you needed healing from. But when you put this on this pedestal and you kind of apply this pressure on it, you take away the therapeutic aspect of it. And now it becomes about statistics. Now it becomes about accolades. Now it becomes about, how do you fit into this so-called system? And also with now the abundance of sponsorships, Red Bull and Monster and competitions like BC1 and Nike's also now getting involved, and Reebok's involved, and Samsung involved, and all these different companies are involved. Now you start to learn moves that will help you learn. You start to learn moves that will help you win competitions. instead of learning moves that will help you tell your story the best possible way. And I remember, this was years ago, I took Bruce Almighty's workshop, and he said that if you only try to learn moves to win competitions, you will never learn them. So that has kind of been, in terms of your identity question, that has kind of been like it's these different identities that I'm trying to kind of like, I'm trying to honor breaking for what it is, which is use it as a form of expression. But I always see myself kind of falling back into this kind of aspect of like, but what if I win this competition? What if I, maybe get sponsored, right? Not to say this will ever happen. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Who doesn't know? Who knows? But, you start to operate from a mind frame of like, you're using breaking as kind of a staircase to get to all these different things. So now you're kind of destroying the purity of it, the honesty of it, the love for it. And now, when you look around and you see other people that genuinely love it and care about it, you start to now doubt whether or not you belong in this space. Because now you feel like you are taking space from somebody that deserves to be in the dance even more. So now you step away. Now you kind of, put yourself in a little shell. But every human being, we all need a place to express ourselves. So now when you because of your own ego, because of your own insecurities, you kind of take away this form of expression from yourself. Well, now you kind of sit in this void. So now the question is, okay, how do I get back to it? And for me, it's about understanding the why, or more so rediscovering why, or reinventing the why. So now no longer it is about winning these competitions and accolades and basing my identity on this, but it is simply about taking my time with it and seeing this where it will lead me. Because I think your favorite breakers, my favorite breakers, most of our favorite breakers became super successful in the early 20s. So now you have this like kind of time constraint on yourself. I have to succeed by 25. I have this is 25, that's it. After 25, I'm like adult. Like I have to focus on like grown man activities, right? I can't do this like breaking thing that much. But now with like advancements to both science and like technology, and also you see also like the medical field, you see people like, Stripes 37, you see physics like 40, you see like Hong Ten 40, Menno 35, 37, whatever. You see these people pushing almost now 40, now that kind of gives you some confidence, some agency back. Oh wait, I don't have to rush the process, right? Because I'm here in the long run, Because the true gift is, I was talking to Chuck about this from Spain. He talked about, going to the Olympics and stuff like that, but then he said that, the goal is to be able to do this long term. And now that's kind of something I'm trying to remind myself every day. The real gift isn't the accolades. The real blessing is just being able to do this long term and then just seeing where it goes. Wherever that ends up being, but you make peace with it, knowing that you were honest with the process.
Real quick, you guys, thanks for watching. Check out the website, talkaboutbreaking.com, where you get all the exclusive interviews, more content, and a future community on the way. I appreciate you. Subscribe, and let's get back to the video.
Burnout is inevitable because, one of the topics that fascinates me a lot about breaking is like mental health, because that's really because there's this irony of like, be authentic, be yourself, right? And I agree, be authentic, be yourself. But, I think being open about topics is also part of that. But yet, like if you look at the scene, I think I can count on my hands how many times I've heard a breaker talk about mental health. So and I think the problem with that is because because you see breaking as end all be all, you craft this persona about yourself. That's really just and the foundation of this new persona is just ego, right? And now you get to a place where when life hits you, because life is going to hit everybody in different ways and shapes and forms, but when life hits you, you don't really ask the community for help. The community, it's like the purpose of the community is to be supportive, but you don't ask for that support. You don't use that support because you feel like you asking for support, making them see you in this vulnerable light is now going to make you question, right, the persona that you created. So now the persona is shattered. So now you have to create a brand new persona, right? And that takes a lot of work, right? And I think some people saw this kind of idea of creating a persona. It's like a faster way to kind of like establish yourself or to kind of throw your name out there, because it takes years, before you can like A lot of breakers talk about, hey, I was practicing yours alone before I entered my first competition, or I was practicing yours alone before I started traveling internationally. And I feel like people want to skip that steps, and they think that creating this persona is going to allow them to skip those steps. But then again, you know, as I said, like from your question, you will have burnout eventually because as I said, like you're forcing breaking to be something that it's really not. It is not supposed to be this like holy grail of your life. Like there's other things to do. You know, read a book, go to nature. Right? Breaking will always be there for you. But again, you know, if you make it all the end all be all, you're gonna have burnout. Also now with competitions, now with the BC1, and now with the Olympics. Because granted, you will never ever enter a competition that's going to be of that caliber. Like that's it. All the other competitions are more local, and it's okay. That's great. I think we should have more local jams. But when this becomes the norm, it becomes like a dopamine hit that you just consistently crave for, but you can never really get it because it is once a year or once 4 years. So what were you doing in this time between? You don't have that motivation to do anything really much for it because 4 years, okay, 4 years is what 365 times 4. Yeah, you can rest for 1 day. You still have all these days left. You can rest for 2 days. You have all these days left. And now eventually you have wasted a year because you have created this mirage of I have all this time, and now you're just really not doing anything. I don't want to sound like a hater, right? But I feel like a lot of people are getting getting good really fast. But I feel like we are creating sensationalism about certain people that are like really young and excel really fast. I feel like we're too quick to turn like young kids into superstars. And I think we're kind of forcing kids into burnouts. Like I remember like when I was a kid, like I'm not bad mouthing, I think they're fantastic breakers and they have humongous potential and they're still great. But I remember when I was growing up, this is early 2010s, you had Little Demon from Hawaii, I think, in J-Style. And they were like these kid prodigies, you know. And, you know, I feel like, you know, I think we are forcing kids to maybe grow up a bit too fast in the scene, right? And then in terms of resources, I think we have good resources. We have good access to resources, especially because you can reach out to people. Not everybody is going to answer back. Some will leave you unread. Some will not even see the message. But there are a lot of breakers that you can reach out to that will help you. And I feel like that accessibility is incredible. And so that definitely is doing a lot of great things. Because I remember when I was like practicing like musicality, I reached out to like 20 breakers and I got like tons of responses. So that definitely was an encouragement. Also with like more workshops being present, that's dope as well. So there's kind of both sides to it. You know, you have access to resources. You can read a lot more about breaking. You can access it through social media. You have a lot of different breakers giving you like tips and advice on moves. You can do private like lessons. You can, you know, you can do your own research. You can, you have also like, it's minor but still helps. You have this ability to like slow down the videos, right? You don't have to rewind the whole thing like with the VHS tape. So now you can study moves a bit more. You study angles, stuff like this. So in that sense, it's great. But also like on like the other side, I feel like, you know, some people, you know, become superstars too early and they peak too early. Because I mean, and then you rush through the whole process, you know, it should be a journey. You know, some people handle it great, but some people, I feel like don't do it that great. And those that don't handle the pressure that great, I feel like we dismiss them. Well, they're not built for it. Or they can't handle it. I know, it's not that they cannot handle it, it's just that you push them too far or too early. Like, you know, some like 12-year-olds will excel really early, they will be professionals. Some not. You know, some ran too fast and they need now time to slow down. And instead of discouraging them, being like, okay, you know, you had your time, let's find the next kid prodigy. No, we helped him, let's continue helping him or her, right? We give everybody the space that they need to either if they move fast, okay, we move fast with them. But if they need to slow down, okay, we will slow down with them. But, you know, to be kind of more cognizant about, you know, different people and different speeds and not expect everybody to rush at the same speed or crash at the same time, you know what I mean? I mean, it kind of goes both ways, you know. I mean, clearly Lorenzo did it that way through social media and it worked for him. But again, I don't think we should take kid prodigies. I mean, I think it's a fantastic breaker, there's no doubt, but I don't think we should take kid prodigies as the norm, right? I do think there's a certain, because like I'm in Berlin right now, and and after the workshop, this was last year, I was just speaking to this, like one of the dudes I went to workshop with, and we started talking. He was like, well, like us breakers in Berlin, like we there's like 2 days a week when we like gather and we just practice together. So now he gave me like the link, and I'm in this WhatsApp group where it's like 7 days a week, different dance styles meet at different spots in Berlin, and they just practice together. So, and I think that's dope, because now you're building with the scene, now you're building with person to person, and it's a lot doper when you have that connection, right? When you have that human connection. I think if you're too reliable on social media, you're kind of, in a sense, if you become too dependent on social media to give you that foot in, you're kind of allowing social media and the algorithm to take the humanity out of your dance, because okay, what's the point? Okay, you're putting it on social media. There's a reason. The reason is you want to be seen. But for you to be seen it's not enough to just do an air flare. Like, okay, we've seen so many air flares. We've seen 4-year-olds who do air flares, all right? Now you have to do something else to be viral, because virality equals visibility now. So now we kind of go back to the point I made. Now you're trying to learn moves that will help you win competitions, in this case be viral, instead of learning moves that will help you reach, tell your story the best way. You just in my opinion, I think you should prioritize the local scene, right? Okay, now you can't compare, me in Berlin and Lorenzo from a small town in the Netherlands. Like I have like tons of workshops here, I have like one of the biggest, like I take the bus and I'm 15 minutes away from like one of the biggest dance schools in Berlin, in Europe, the Flying Steps, to take a workshop. So I can really fully rely on just the local scene. But somebody that is from a small town that does not have the accessibility to travel so much, that does not have the ability to take workshops, or workshops do not come to his town or her town, well then, yeah, I think it's okay to use social media, right? But try to still make peace with it, right? Post the video that you want to post. Not, the aim shouldn't be, I want to be viral, I want to be seen. No, just post what you would share in a cipher. Imagine you're in a cipher with 5-10 people at your local jam and everybody's freestyling. How do you want to introduce yourself, right? And post that, share that. And then whatever happens, it might happen. Right? Eventually, some people will see you, some people will give you props, to give you respect. Some people might not. But eventually, if that doesn't work out, there will be an opportunity for you to travel. Maybe not now, maybe not now, or a few years later, but years later it will be possible. I remember like Munir used to say that, like, he comes also from a small town in France, and he used to be like, well, I used to just practice at this like train station all the time, and like eventually I had the money to like go to this breaking jam, and they were missing one person in the lineup, and then they were like, hey, we need somebody, like, and then he's like stood up like, it's me. It happened to me at the same time. Like I went to a local jam, I didn't sign up, but they were missing people, and the host was like speaking to me and like the other kids, and he knew that I break, and was like, hey, we need people to fill up. Can you please like fill up the lineup? I was like, yeah, I got it. You have to. This also shows a little bit trust in your dance. You have to be able to be confident enough in your dance that if you're honest with your dance will be honest with you, and in turn, it will take you to all these places and spaces wherever you have to be. I don't think you're nowadays, with social media and self-help books and gurus, everybody wants to calculate success. Everybody wants to turn everything into a mathematical equation. But I don't think you can live your life like that. I think certain things you have to, leave to fate, to change, to whatever you want to call it, right? That's my point. I prefer locality, but again, as I said, this other part can work too. The thing for me is, how do I define giving back, right? Because I'm not teaching a workshop anytime sooner, but for example, I give back when there's an opportunity to give back, when it makes sense to give back. For example, when I was in elementary school, there was this one kid, like I would, like in gym class, like the gym teacher would let me and my friend, like we would dance, we would bring out the mat and we would just dance, like, and we would practice. And then one of the students in my class, he was like, he really wanted to learn. Because like when I was a kid, I loved doing like the double elbow slide. So he's like, can you teach me the elbow slide? And taught him the elbow slap. It's a small level, but I'm giving back. Or like, for example, I had this one really good friend, and her brother was interested in starting dancing. And, and she was like, you dance? And I was like, yeah, I dance. Like, and then he was like, teach me something. And I was like, what can I teach you? And I was like, okay, fine. Took like some time, and I taught him something, right, that I knew. I didn't teach him how to do like crazy flips, but I taught him what I knew, right? So when I had those opportunities to give back, I give back. But in a sense, I should be doing more to initiate those moments, where I can give back. But then my question is, and this is like a question of identity and a question of like just confidence, like what does giving back to me look like? Like how can I give back? Like I'm not, like my skill level isn't that tall enough, right? That high enough. So how can I give back? I try to learn history from the scene. Like, for example, I want also perfect, I want to share this. So in the 80s, right, in California and in Las Vegas, they didn't know how to name breaking moves. Like everything, naming came later when they started to teach breaking. So a lot of people in the 80s in California and Vegas, they started to call footwork Skittles, because when you drop Skittles on the ground and it makes the sound like that's the sound sporadic footwork would make. So they started to call footwork Skittles, right? And in Las Vegas in the 80s, there was also a break crew called the Rock Skittles crew, right? So that was, like I got learned from Pope, for example. So that's like my view of giving back. Like I like to learn history, and then like when I have an opportunity, like now, for example, like I like to share it, right? It's random, but it's not, I don't know if it's going to help you with your dancing, but it's fun. It's fun to know, right? It gives you insight into how other people taught. So that's kind of how I look back at giving up. Also, I think giving back is, to me, attending these workshops, because stepping into the cipher, because I have confidence for everything in life. Confidence, no problem with confidence. The cipher, petrified, fully petrified. Like that's just a huge fear of mine. But when I go into the cipher and I share my dance, I'm kind of giving back, right? When I see a dope breaker, I went to last year at BC1 Germany cipher. There was this breaker that was like really dope, and he randomly sat next to me, we sat next to each other on the day of the cipher, and I turned to him and I said, "Yo, your dance is really dope," and he was like, "Man, thank you." So for me, giving back is like I try to share the history. I try to share the props, the respect, the love. If I see some dope video that inspires me, like I try to give props. Hey, like this video made me think about breaking like this, so I give props. And this is like my little idea of giving back to the scene until I feel like I can give back in terms of skill. So now while I'm developing the skill, I try to give back in terms of knowledge, in terms of props. We'll continue to do this, but now I do what I can with what I have. You know what I mean? And this is like the conundrum. Our rap scene is very well developed. You want humor, we have rappers that rap about humor. You want politics, I'm talking like that Public Enemy Wu-Tang type of grit, or the Roots, right? You have that. You want storytelling, we have that. Every possible idea of rap that you can think of, we have that. And it's not on the ground stuff. No, it's very well developed. But the conundrum is our breaking isn't that developed, right? And one of the problems is you don't need a workshop for rapping. You can just listen to rapping. You can read your local poets and you can figure it out as you go. But with breaking, you need that guidance. You need more. So you need more that in-person guidance. Than for rhyming, right? And for breaking, breakers don't really come to Serbia that much. So here and there will be, but one of the reasons, and this is in terms of the population number is different also, but if you look at India, for example, nobody knew anything about Indian breakers, not a thing. And then suddenly B1 All Stars and just generally started organizing these jams, and they started to bring all these world-class breakers. And now then the breakers, they would pick this knowledge, they will develop, they will share in their local scene, and now India is this really big powerhouse in breaking. I mean, maybe it's not, maybe they don't have world champions or whatever, but they're very well respected, they're very well developed, they're there. With Serbia, you don't have that many, not a lot of people be coming into Serbia to teach workshops. And that's why in terms of skill, we are a little bit behind. And again, you can only share as much of your knowledge, like as much knowledge that you have. To continue to grow, you need more knowledge. But now the question is, how do you get breakers to come to Serbia? Because that costs money, right? Some people will come to Serbia freely, right? Or generally, it's true for any country. Some people you have to pay, right? But being somebody is able to pay a breaker from America 5,000 euros or dollars to travel. For some organizer, this is easy. For somebody, this is a little bit more difficult. So the one way that I look at giving back is because I've been able to take workshops from all these different breakers, like outside of my own country. Like one way of giving back that I see is like I can share this knowledge, like that I learned from these breakers you did not have access to, but that's okay, I had access to. And now this knowledge that I have, I share it with you. Right, so that's also like an idea of giving back that I think of. Yeah, first of all, they were the ones that were driving me to all these workshops. They were the ones, I was like, Mom, can I get 20? Can I get 20 for like the workshops? Like, yeah, okay, here you go, here's 20, right? I remember, like, I'll share this with you, right? So I was living in Bern, Switzerland, and the BC1 camp was in Zurich. This is an hour 30, and the whole camp lasted a week. And luckily I was on summer break. I was on October, autumn break. And my mom would drive me to the workshop, you know what I mean? Every day she would drive me hour 30 to Zurich and then back so that I can attend these workshops. I would go to BC1, I would go to BC1 ciphers with Dad, for example. I would watch BC1 with Dad. Then we would my dad's not a breaker, right? But still, I intrigued him into breaking, and then we'd analyze battles together. So that's kind of like a fun memory, but also parents cultivated curiosity. They wanted me to be able to express myself. Like when I was doing DIY little experiments at home, like my parents supported that. They encouraged me to experiment, to be curious about the world. They encouraged me to go to nature, explore nature. They encouraged me, to try these different experiences, to meet new people, to learn about different cultures, So they sparked the curiosity. Also, they sparked, they sparked the grit, you know what I mean? You will fall, you will slip, you will fail, but that's okay. But you have to have some inner strength to keep going back up. And and it's okay, you don't have to do it on your own. You have God, you have Christ, right? You have us, right? You have the support system. Don't do it alone. The support system is there for you. They also one of the things that I said was focus on what you're doing, right? So don't it's cool. Have dreams. That's dope. You should have dreams. But at the same time, understand those dreams are there, right? You're building now. Right, you're living now, you're living here, right? So, be present, right? Enjoy the moment, right? And just really learn to take as much of the moment as you can. Also understand the importance of family, it's not just, for me, it wasn't just I'm raised, just me, my mom and dad. No. The grandparents are also there, right? The aunties, the uncles. So always make sure that your family is there for you to support you. I remember my first breaking competition, mom, dad, and my two grandmas that came to support and being big fans, So when you have that support system like that, encourages you. They don't understand everything about breaking, but when they see that how much when they see me walk out of a workshop and I was yo, I learned this and that, they're that's dope, So they encourage me to pursue it, you know what I mean? Now, again, don't make breaking everything. Go to school, get a degree, right? And I agree with that, right? Get your degree, right? But also understand that, your art is important to you, right? And you shouldn't neglect it. You have art in your life for a reason. My mom also, she likes, going a lot to art museums. My dad, has always been playing music. Growing up, I was always listening to, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, Elvis Presley, right? I got into break, and then through Elvis Presley, I got into gospel music. And then I was okay, but what other gospel music do you have? The Baptist and the Methodist gospel music. And then I got into breaking. And then there was James Brown. And then there was James Brown and the OJs and Otis Redding. And now I'm sharing, with my parents the music that I'm listening to now. And then there's Latin music, Tito Puente and Ray Barretos. There is this, art was always there, right? And art was always seen as a medium, that you should enjoy, you should understand, you should explore, and you know, you should, you know, if you have a gift, you know, for art, you know, you should like definitely like pursue it, you know, like do something with it. Like it's a gift, develop it.